Okay, so this week we're going to kind of just take a brief snapshot through the 1800s to see what was going on with the workforce. So the first thing we're going to look at is the effect of this move to industrialization on women and children in terms of pulling them into the workforce, and then we will look at kind of the overall wages and health. So again, just to remind you, we have these two stages of industrialization in the U.S. First stage, we're moving from the homespun, like local shop, to some primitive form of factory. The second stage is more akin to what we would associate with industrialization in the present, where we get large scale factories that run on electricity. They have assembly lines. They're doing like batch processing. So that takes place in the late 1800s. This is in the beginning of the 19th century. Okay. Yeah, so we move from the sort of small shops to really simple factories like we covered last time, which is really primarily taking advantage of specialization, the division of labor, and there's like minimal outside power sources. We have some water wheels, some steam engines, but primarily this is a division of labor story. So Golden and Claudia Golden and Ken Sokoloff, early on, kind of revisited these early censuses of manufacturing um, to try to figure out, okay, what did this mean? What does this industrialization mean for the workforce? And so a couple things they find. So basically, we're just going to go through the paper's main findings. One, when we talk about economies of scale, what that means is the larger the factory is or the organization is, the more efficient they become. How we measuring efficiency is like what is output per worker. So the idea of economies of scale is as I grow larger, I'm getting more output per worker because I have these efficiency gains. Because of the division of labor, I don't know, spillovers between workers, whatever the reason might be. And so what they find is that there really is economies of scale. As you move up to 5 workers, you're getting more output per worker. There's a big jump to the sixth worker, but then it plateaus after that. So there's really not much efficiency gains for establishments over, say, 6 or 7 workers. Okay. All right. So that's what we'll see this in the early part of the 1800s, where most of these, as I said, most of these factories are quite small by modern standards. Okay, and so we have the manufacturing growth. This is the proportion of labor force employed in agriculture. You can see this dropping throughout the early 1800s. Okay, little more so, not much, a little more so in New England. At the same time, you have the first wide scale entry of women into wage work, labor force, what we would call now labor force participation. And so you can see some of these percentages, and this is primarily in the Northeast. And if you took, I don't know if it's still taught now or what how history is taught now, but when I was in high school, you had a section on industrialization in the Northeast and women working in factories. These women are largely employed in um, in the larger firms. So you can see the percentage here. So your medium firms, again, large by that standards. And so you can see the percentages of women, percent of the workforce that is women, is much higher in these larger firms than it is in kind of the small local firm. Okay, and it's in a variety of different variety of different goods. So here's a bunch of different types of goods, and you see women working in all these different industries. All right. This translated to an increase in their earnings relative to men. So they were earning about 30 cents for every dollar that men were earning. That rose up to about 50 cents or close to 50 cents in New England. Okay, so this first bit of industrialization pulls women and some children under 15 into the workforce. This is primarily in large firms, but it's across a wide range of industries, and it increases their relative wages. Um, and so this is the first wide scale entry of women into work outside of home production. So that's one of the consequences of industrialization, is that this is work that women were doing outside the home for the first time, and this really had not taken place before, at least that we know of. Okay, let's take a break there, and then we'll jump into the Engels pause.